honestly just brief, super high level overview. Today we're just going to be talking about like introduction to concert photography, how to get into it, what to expect, kind of how to do some of the nuts and bolts types of things. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be just talking about for the next like 35 or so minutes. So I figured I should probably introduce myself a little bit. My name is Miranda. I go to Emerson in Boston. I'm in my senior year, which is honestly so exciting. I'm very ready to be done. I'm majoring in film production, or I guess my major is like visual media arts. So part-time filmmaker, part-time intern. I work at a software company right now doing video production, editing, podcasts mostly, which is super interesting and fun with a photo background. Like Sophie said, I joined Luna October 2021. So coming straight out of COVID, concerts were starting to come back. I was like, I need to do something new. I want to expand my photography and started following Luna. They were open to like new photographers. Back then it was like truly only film photography, even in like the concert setting. So it's definitely been a journey for us. And for me as well. I kind of stopped shooting for a little bit and then got back into it. But I guess somehow I'm almost 2 years deep into this now, which is crazy. I'm currently also the photo coordinator for 5 Cent Sound, which is my college's like music publication. So basically that means I get to babysit everyone, help out all of my photographers with PR contacts if they have any questions, whatnot. And I figured this question always comes up. People always ask me what my favorite concert has been. I've been to, I think, about 45 in the last like 2 years. So it's kind of a hard question to answer. But I have to say Remy Wolf or Maggie Rogers because I love them from like a music standpoint. And also they were great shows to cover. Really exciting and like entertaining. Also, Maggie Rogers did post my pictures and that was probably a moment that changed my life a little bit. Mostly just because I was like, oh my God, what? This is crazy. I DM'd Maggie Rogers. But yeah, so that is one of the like highlights, I guess, of my like little concert photography career so far. So I figured the best way to kind of like break this down is like into 3 parts. How do we get to the show? What should you expect at the show, and what do you do after the show after you've taken pictures? So this might be some repeat knowledge for some of you, but there are probably like 2 or 3 ways to get access to shooting a show. Typically what you would do and what I tend to do is I work with Luna or a publication and I reach out to PR agents that represent artists and I simply ask. I say, hey, I'm a photographer with the Luna Collective. We would love to come out and cover your show and cover your artist, and we will provide X, Y, and Z coverage in return for, you know, that free ticket and the press pass. When you're applying to like go to cover a show, there's a couple really big things. One, how do you know who to contact? And this may sound really simple, but I promise you 9 times out of 10, if you Google like artist name, like PR contact, it will come up, which sounds so crazy and probably incorrect, but like 9 times out of 10 with some like good internet sleuthing, you are able to like find the contact. That doesn't mean they always respond necessarily, but it's a good starting place. Another way that you can find contacts is through purchasing a contact database. I know some people who like share licenses, and I have some people that I text when I ultimately get stumped and I'm like, I literally cannot find this for the life of me, and I've spent like 20 minutes searching. But those are typically like $150 a year for like a PR database. So decide if that's right for you and how deep into this you're gonna go. So I think I kind of glossed over the like how to join a publication. Most of these publications that I've ever worked for have been rooted in social media. So Luna Collective is a print and online publication. There are some that are simply online or simply only print. If you're currently in college, your school may have a music publication, and that is a great place to start. I'd also recommend seeing if your school has like a radio station. My college has one, and there are like photographers who shoot and cover concerts through them as well. So like that's another avenue that you could kind of get into this. Another way that I know a couple people who just simply were like, I want to do this. I'm starting my own. I want to be in charge of this, and I don't want to have to ask anyone for permission. Which, you never know. That might work for you. I would also say if you are someone who's a little bit younger, or like high school, early college, simply asking can kind of get you in. I know a couple like high school age people who, if there's a show coming to the area, definitely smaller scale, they will simply just email and be like, hi, like I'm new to concert photography. This is my age. This is what I'm doing. And PR agents want to see that, because then that's starting to develop a relationship early on, and kind of gets you involved from a really young age, which is super awesome. I have some people that I know that have been doing this since they were like 14 years old, which is so crazy to me because I didn't start doing this until I was like 19. I'm now 21. And so the next part, once you find like the PR contact, is actually writing the email. I think one thing that I have learned in my like brief time as an editor for my school's publication is be kind in your emails. I know that sounds really simple, but email etiquette, even from a professional standpoint, is something to learn early and something to like try to perfect. I have learned so much about kind of like professionalism and professional etiquette through like concert photography. Up here is, I included like a little screenshot of the typical email that I would send. And like I said, be kind. Start your email. Hope that you're having a great Monday. Or like if you're emailing on a Monday morning, hope you had a great weekend. Because you are one of hundreds of emails in this PR agent's inbox. And although like you will get to know certain people a little bit over time, you are simply just one of the many little minions and like groundlings that they work with. So be kind to them. They're people. Another email kind of thing that may sound a little silly, but I live and die by schedule sending emails. If you're someone who likes to work really late at night, don't send someone an email at like 12. Like, just don't. Simply start using the schedule send. You can pick a day, a time, whenever to actually send that email. So if you wanted to hit their inbox at 9 a.m. on a Monday, so it's like the first thing they see, go ahead and do that, because I think emailing in the middle of the night kind of doesn't look super awesome on your behalf. So part of this is also like relationship management, as well as like kind of, you'd never want to leave a PR agent with a sour taste in their mouth when it comes to emailing and working with you. So that is kind of like the part of this that like you have to be a little bit careful and a little bit calculated in what you do, because ultimately you are building a relationship and you're also creating your own reputation. You want these people to give you work later in the future, hopefully, if you keep your fingers crossed and the stars and the moon align and they actually want to pay you. But it's important to do the little things. Have a great day. It's that simple. So that's kind of like a really big overview of kind of like relationships with your PR agent. And also, like, if you want to screenshot this and steal my email template, please do. I learned all of this through all of the TikTok girlies that they were like the content influencers that were kind of emerging in the like concert photography space. And so take it, use it as a base, and kind of like modify it to your own voice. This is very boilerplate. One thing I would like to mention, because this happened to me and I learned my lesson the very hard way, is that if you are asking for a press pass, that does not mean you are asking for a ticket. You have to be very clear in asking for both a press, like you're asking for a press pass and a GA ticket to most concerts, or like a ticket of some kind. I had to pay a full price ticket for Claro because I was like, I need to take pictures of Claro, obviously. That's the agenda. So definitely one tiny like minor note to kind of linger on that one. That's a picture of me at a show this summer that I really felt the need to include so that you understand. It's fun. It's a little rowdy. You're not always taking pictures from the photo pit. if you're someone who's like super, super new to this, or someone who hasn't been to a lot of concerts, typically if you're at a GA concert, there will be this like giant metal barricade at the front. And that's kind of the space that usually like security will be in, but that's also where the photographers are. So it's like half crowd management, half like so your photographers can do their little thing. And typically, as like once you have the pass, you pick up your you also, when you go to a show, typically you pick up your photo pass from will call. So bring an ID. They have to know who you are. You're emailing back and forth with them, so they, you know, it's very like formal in that kind of sense. So in this like fun little dream scenario that we're going through, you're at your show, you pick up your press pass. Really important thing to note, don't post pictures of your press passes. I know that it's really exciting and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting to take pictures at this concert for the first time, like woo, it's awesome. But something that's really important is safety for the people who are on tour. I know that you are all probably very normal and awesome superstar people, but there are also a lot of not awesome people in the world. And so a lot of tours will have like very specific or personalized press passes, and you don't want to be posting photos of that because that can potentially like endanger them if someone has a stalker or like a crazed fan who wants, you know, to get backstage. So that's something that is like very important to know and be aware of, because I get the excitement part, and someone had to tell me this at one point. And it was like, hey girly, let's not do that. And I was like, oh, so true. Thank you. So that's just something to note about that. Then now you're at the show. I typically, it depends how anxious of a human you are. I usually show up, I don't know, 15 minutes before the show starts. Most of the time, I live in Boston, so each venue is very different about this, but some places you just say, hey, I have a photo pass, can I come in? And sometimes they'll be like, sure, sounds good, we'll check your bag and do it. Some places are gonna go make you wait in the entire GA line until you get in. So, you know, play with fire. Choose what you want to do and how stressed you are. If you've, like I said, if you're someone who's never really been to a concert before, typically what to expect is if it says the show starts at 8, that means the opener is going to start at 8. And depending on how many openers there are, the act will probably go actually on like typically about an hour after. So each set is between like 45 minutes to an hour. Obviously, there are going to be like different circumstances for different artists. If you are someone who, if you are coming from a job or coming from class, like you can always reach out to the PR agent and ask actually for like, what time does so-and-so go on, so that you can kind of be a little bit more prepared. And once we're inside, once we made it to the show, the photo policy is typically first 3 songs from the photo pit, no flash. No flash also includes a focus assist. That's something to be very aware of, because as a photographer, you need to be mindful of the other people who are there shooting with you as well. And having something like a photo assist can add like a little red dot onto like the artist's face that will get into your photo. So it's kind of something to just be like considerate and aware of. If you don't know, some cameras have it, some cameras don't. So you can kind of just go through your settings, or just like a quick Google search will let you know. Another thing to note is that the shooting location changes. Sometimes it'll be from the crowd the entire time. Sometimes it'll be from the pit. And sometimes, which is the saddest time of all, they'll tell you front of house. And front of house bass or soundboard means that you're going to be all the way in the back with the lighting people. So if that's kind of a circumstance you're in, that typically happens at something that's like a larger arena style, or that's the only places I've really experienced it. Like larger venues will kind of put you back there. So that's something to be aware of. If that happens, you're going to need a long lens, and that's time where community and photo friends really comes into play, because I don't know about you guys, but a long lens is usually around $2,000, and that's not really like an easy like thing to put your card down for all the time. So there's that. And that information will come to you through the PR agent. Sometimes you'll get to a show and the person who's working guest, or like guest, like sometimes there's like a special like guest entrance, and they will tell you the photo policy to make sure that everyone is on the same page about that. So sometimes they do switch it up on you, which is not super fun, but remember, it's not their fault. They're just executing what the PR agents tell them. Oh, this is probably a question that a lot of you are thinking and wondering about is, what are my camera settings supposed to be? And the really unfortunate answer is it's going to depend. It's going to depend on the lighting situation. It's going to depend on the quality of lights that the venue has. It also really depends on what type of camera you have. If you're just starting out and you're with like a very amateur level, your ISO is going to be super high and your images are going to be grainy, and that's simply because of the camera's capabilities. With that being said, I'm not saying that you need to run out and go buy like the new like Canon mirrorless system because of that. There are so many levels and so many different points of entry to get into concert photography. I know people who started with a point and shoot and they've made it really far. And that is how you become creative and you learn to like use what you got to get what you want. That's kind of probably one of my like favorite little sayings is, it doesn't matter if you have a camera that's $6,000 or like $300. You can make something amazing if you are driven and like that's what you want to do. One thing that I would love to like point out is imposter syndrome. I feel that all the time. The fact that I'm doing this feels so crazy, honestly. But I remember walking up to the front at the first show that I ever, or like first like bigger show. It was Thundercat through Luna, and I walked up to the front and I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't be here. Everyone else is like a 30-year-old adult. They have like these little like camera straps and things and their little backwards hats. And I was like, I should not be here. This is not my place. But something that was super awesome is the community of photographers in Boston is so supportive. They immediately were like, nah, dude, like you got this, like no worries, it's fine. And like some people that I met at that show are now like really close friends of mine. So the imposter syndrome fades. You're there, everyone is learning, and everyone is at a different point. So don't be intimidated by someone else's photos. I feel like there's this incredible community, I think, in concert photography specifically. I don't know if I'm just spoiled based off of where I live. I'm sure it's probably different in each city, but I believe in the spirit of like community over competition. You're here to bring other people up with you. You're here to like learn and grow and get better. And ideally, the people you're with in the pit are going to be people who are going to refer you to jobs someday. And so being aware and kind towards the other photographers in your community is going to get you a long way. And with that being said, while you're in the pit during those first 3 songs, don't stand in one place. I know that it's really easy to like, if there's like a singer songwriter type that's just like standing, like guitar playing, just like anchor yourself on either like the left or right side. Do it for 30 seconds and move. Everyone is there to get their shots. It's important that there's a flow, because if everyone starts standing, you're going to be trapped and all of your images are going to be from the same angle. So if you're like me in visual awareness, because it's dark and really loud, and you're going to get people who are like, excuse me, and they're all trying to be polite. So make space, be conscious of others. I did realize that one thing I should totally mention is buy earplugs. That sounds so silly, but, and you're probably like, it's fine, I've been to a concert before, like it's not that big of a deal. That's what I said, and now my ears ring sometimes and it's really scary. So I really recommend doing that. Yeah, huge. And if you don't have them, sometimes certain venues, like if you go up to the bar, you're like, hey, can I buy some earplugs? Like whatever. Usually they will have some to sell to you for like $2 or $3. It's recommendations. Eargasm is super popular, or the like loop ones. I have the loop ones. They're cool. I like them because they're pretty. That's like not the best answer because they do work. Like they reduce like sound. I think it's like 20 decibels. I think it's super important. That show, the like first real big girl show I went to, Thundercat, super bassy because he like heavy bass like jazz player, and I remember walking out like just like feeling like my ears were gonna start bleeding. Great show, would go back, would do it again, but this time with earplugs. So that's super important for like your own health and like longevity in like concert photography. So yeah, that's very important. Okay, net tips. Experiment, have fun. If you're interested, if you've ever seen like concert photos and you're like, oh my God, the little stars or whatnot. I remember like Googling how to get stars in photos, and I thought that was something that people were doing with Photoshop. That's not what it is. There are a lot of like filters that you can buy, star filters. There's a million different types. I like the Hoya ones. I've bought the expensive ones and been like really sad about it. I didn't love how they look, but you have to like experiment and try. And so that's the other thing of like community is important. If you're at a show, your buddy's like, here, you want to try my new like a refraction light thing? You can always kind of learn and experiment that way without having to spend like the $80. FX filters is like, I'm sure if you're in like the photo space, you've definitely received like some type of like ad or marketing from them. But yeah, they sell them and it's fun. Don't think of it too deeply. Like, have fun, experiment. If you like it, you can become like me and use a star filter in pretty much every photo. And if there's not one, I get really sad. I'm like, where's the joy? Where's the sparkle? That's what I'm looking for. But those kinds of things will like ultimately help guide like your style, and you'll learn how to use them the more that you work with it, which kind of leans into the practice makes perfect. If I were to show you guys the pictures from like the first concert I ever took, I feel like I would just kind of look away a little sad and be like, oh, but it takes time. I got really addicted to like shooting concerts, and that sounds like weird, but I get really like in the zone and I want to improve and get better. And in the first like 3 months that I did this, or I began like shooting concerts, I think I did 25 in like 3 months. And that's not sustainable because life and school and like jobs. And so I was really pushing myself to do like 3 concerts a week, which was really fun. But then it's like balance could be great. So beware the burnout. I have seen so many people go through that same pattern because it's really exciting. You get in and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I have access. This is the first time that I'm able to do so many like it, because you kind of feel a little cool. You're at the front, you're taking pictures, like all the fans there pushing up, being like, woo! And you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the feeling and the ambiance and the environment is very exciting. And so there's like kind of the adrenaline rush. So be careful, I guess. And I know or maybe I just have like a lightly addictive personality. Who knows? But I think it's one of those things to be really aware of how quickly you can get burnt out, especially when it comes to returning images. I am a little insane and I need to like take my pictures, go home, edit until 2 a.m. and then review them in the morning and send them out. That's not the most sustainable workflow, but I'm kind of a big believer in like the quicker you return your images, like the quicker you can post them, which is kind of like the tough part about like concert photography. I had one more bullet point before I start talking about that. Community. Be nice to your other photographers. If I already haven't made that clear, be kind, make them your friends. If you're in the New England area and you're also on this call right now, there's a really awesome Discord server, which I know sounds a little bit nerdy depending on who you are. But everyone is there to help out and there's a lot of conversation and it's kind of beautiful. So if you're in a big city, I'm sure there's something like that exists. Get to know people, talk to them. If you're a little shy, just say, hey, like acknowledge the other people that are there because you are about to be sharing space with them for a while. So that's the other part, is it kind of makes it less awkward as you're like scooting by someone in like a 2-inch narrow photo pit. Because sometimes they like the people who like put the barricades up choose violence and you have maybe a foot, which is super fun. And it's a nice new challenge for you guys. But yeah, be nice, make friends, socialize. And after the show, what I started to talk about a little bit is the sooner you send your photos, the sooner you can post them. Every publication is going to have a little bit of a different protocol. For me with the publication, all my photographers, you can post them as long as I have them to put them up on the website. So if you remember where this all started with emailing our little PR friends, the reason that they're giving you access to the shows is because you are serving their function. So you are helping publicize these artists, which I think is something a lot of times gets a little like missed in all of this, is you're actually helping like this cycle. and helping further like awareness for these artists, which you kind of get lost in it a little bit because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing cool pictures and like whatnot. But ultimately, you are serving a function. So you have to remember, if you're working through a publication, you have to return your images to your editors in a timely manner, partially because they have jobs, they have things to do as well. But each publication will have their own rules. I do not like to send my pictures more than like 3 days after I've taken them. But also, like I said, I don't necessarily have that much chill. So I like to send them back next day, which is kind of intense and a little crazy. You don't have to do that. That's not the like standard expectation. But that's just something that I typically like to do. And when you actually send your photos to the editors or to your editor through your publication, or if you're putting them up yourself, don't send more than 20 photos. Don't send your editors blurry, out of focus photos unless they're like long exposure or like intentionally like that. If it's an artistic choice, more power to you. Do it. Don't stop. But if not, don't send them more than 20 photos. And a lot of these publications are built on Squarespace and they don't allow for images over 20 MBS. So just be aware of that when you're exporting and like choosing which photos you'd like to share. Be aware of file size. If you're someone who likes to start your edit in Lightroom and end in like Photoshop because you put like 4 different like filters and adjustment layers on top, your images may be huge in like 70 megabytes, or I've had a couple that have definitely bridged on like 2 something because I just had a lot of fun in Photoshop. So just be aware of that. That's kind of the techie side of this. One really important thing that I live and die by is data management, which is the super not fun part of photography. Is the tech or not? Well, it depends who you are, but being aware of how to manage all the data that you're creating is super, super important. If you're new to this, I really recommend buying an external hard drive. I have a million of these little guys and I have a new one for each year. But the super not cool thing is hard drives die. They die all the time. They kind of just combust on a random Tuesday and then there goes 4 years of your life. That has happened to me. It is a grief you feel to your core. Yeah, so true. I don't think I've ever cried harder. I was in high school and I lost like everything. That was like way back when. It wasn't about the photos. I was just sad. Literally, yeah. So learning to have a workflow for your data management is super important. And the sooner you learn that, the better. And that's like, if you're a creative in any sense, becoming good at data management and file organization is going to carry you really far. And what I do, which is maybe a little bit a lot, but I have one of these. So this is a SSD, which is a solid state drive. I also have normal hard drives, and the normal hard drives are the ones that I don't know where my hard drive is, which is awesome. The normal hard drives, the way they work is it's a spinning disk. So what that means is you have to be super, super careful with them because you drop it, boom, she's done. So I have said this, I think someone said this to me like way back. Yes, if it's not in 3 places, it doesn't exist. That is the motto to live and die by. I treat my hard drive like a princess. It has its own little case. It's cute. It's pink. Like, I know where it is at all times. And so I have my normal hard drive, like the spinning disk one, that is a backup of this. And then this, all of my final imagery gets put into, I have like 2 terabytes of cloud space on Google. And so all my final deliverables go there. So that's kind of like the housekeeping side of this. And when you start to do a lot of shows, you're going to create a lot of data, because if you're just starting out, you're going to go crazy when you shoot. You're going to walk away from a show with like 1,500 pictures and you're going to be like, I don't even know where to start. And that's like a very common thing. I overshoot all the time. It's kind of just natural. It happens. You get excited and like the artist is like doing their little dance and you're like, oh my God, I need the angles. I need the motion. And then you end up with like 1,500 or 2,000 photos. And that becomes a lot when you open your computer and you open Lightroom and you're like, cool, so I'm going to edit and look at all 1,000 of these. It can be a lot. So kind of thinking ahead and planning for yourself is super important. I'm not saying don't overshoot. It's just you kind of have to pay the consequences of your actions, which may mean taking longer to edit. And so once we already have all of our images like created and sent to our editor, your editor is most likely going to send you a link to that actual post. And make sure that you send that link to the publicist, because like I said, that completes the loop. That's the full cycle of what you're trying to do. And don't forget to do that. I had one of my photographers simply not know that that's what they were supposed to do. And they had been like shooting for a publication for like 5 months. And I was like, so you haven't sent any images? So be aware of that. It might not seem obvious and you might think that your editor is doing it, but typically that responsibility falls on you as the photographer. So don't forget the last and final step. And like we talked about, be kind. Always remember to say, thank you so much for having me out to the show. I really had a great time. Like whatever you want to say, whatever little extra stuff. And what will typically happen is the more consistently you begin to shoot, these companies and these PR agencies are going to put you on their PR list, and you'll start receiving like offers and invites to come cover shows. And just know with love that that gets sent to a lot of people. So don't feel obligated to like go out and cover all of these shows that are being offered to you. It's totally up to you. But that is something that like once you're a couple months deep into it, you'll start to notice those hit your inbox, which is really exciting. And sometimes you're like, oh my God, I'd love to do that. But yeah. And then the last part, I guess, which is kind of the love-hate relationship, is the social media part. It's really hard. It's really brutal. You will take pictures that you're like, this was the one, this was incredible. And then like 40 people will like it. And I think it's a really hard thing to go through, especially as like an artist and especially as like a young artist. And like, we want to make art because it's like an internal like expression, but also it's nice to have people see it. It's nice to like, you know, get the little comments back and people tell you like, oh my God, love this one. Or people are like reposting your stuff. But it's important to not like, don't stop because of that. I've definitely gone through phases where I've given social like a little bit too much impact in my own life. So don't let that like discourage you. Keep pushing, keep trying new things. It will pay off someday. I'm a big fan of Reels. If you're not super into social, I think that's something that is unfortunately a big part of being a concert photographer, is the digital network. Once you start like following a bunch of people who are also concert photographers and who are also like in the music space, you'll start to see people posting on their story, look like in search of like X, Y, and Z this week in New York, like who is available. And so a lot of jobs actually are shared through social media and not like a typical, like you're not going to find a concert photography job through LinkedIn, which is kind of like the rough truth of it. It's a love-hate because you have to do it, but it's not always super fun. The other side of this is if you don't already have a portfolio, I would start building one now. I have been working on my portfolio since I was in high school. It transforms, it grows over time. Your aesthetic is going to change and your website's going to change with you. If you are someone who pays for Adobe Cloud, if you're a student, they have a lot of great pricing, or great is a reach, but like they have discounted pricing, which is better. A lot of schools, if you have like a media program or something at your school, they'll also like occasionally have like Adobe Creative Cloud for free. I really recommend putting up a website on Adobe Portfolio. If you pay like $7 a year, you can have like yourname.com. So mine is mirandanicusani.com. And I pay $7 a year for my domain, and it's super awesome and easy. And it's a great point and like place that you can send people to go look at your work. And it's kind of just like maintenance, because as you begin to shoot a lot of shows, it can get overwhelming to like update your website. So I really try to be good about that. Because it's like planning for like future you. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say about this. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of like my thoughts on returning images. Yeah. Sophie, you can click. Oh, yeah. So questions from all the peoples. I kind of
First, I
mocked
just
my
want to say
monologue.
the way you covered everything so well. I feel like so much what you're saying, I'm like, ditto, ditto, ditto. Like the
Thanks, Sophie.
burnout, the treating publicists like people, everything. Like for those that haven't shot shows before, like Miranda literally just gave you like the Bible. And for those that have been, like, you probably were thinking the same thing. So first of all, thank you, thank you, thank you. Second of all, just as a reminder, this is being recorded, so this will be accessible on YouTube if you came late. But we're diving into questions. Do you never use Flash? Any tips for shooting film?
Yeah. So it depends. I think when you shoot film in a concert setting, it depends on so many factors. I've had some really epic moments of like film photography at a concert, but those have been shows that are like bigger. And so I think what you'll start to experience like as you shoot in different venues is oftentimes, unfortunately, the smaller shows will have like not as awesome lighting versus like this is a picture from the Big Time Rush concert that I went to last year, which was so awesome. It had some of the best lighting ever. But that type of lighting is not common. Most shows that I'm going to are not going to look like that. And so as a photographer, because you're shooting from the pit and most like I'd say the majority of artists have no flash first 3 songs, you're kind of in a tough place, and that often leaves you with like super high ISO speed for the film that you're purchasing. So what you can do is I would say if you're trying to shoot film at a show, don't buy anything lower than 800 ISO. You're going to have a really tough time. You can buy like film with faster speeds, or what you can also do depending on your developer is you can get your film pushed. So when I started shooting film, honestly, one of my friends developed my film for me, so he would just push it like, I don't know, to 1200 ISO. And so like it creates a different look and a feel in your images, but it also is really dependent on the situation. But yeah, you can use flash, but I don't recommend it because if you're an artist and there's a random flash from not your tour photographer, it's not great. Also, other photographers will be so annoyed. Like you'll get some glares. Like I can't lie. I've definitely given like the stink eye to someone whose flash goes off. It's like, dude, come on, we know better. But yeah.
Good question and good answer. How do you come back from getting bad coverage at a show? Trying to hold back the imposter syndrome after my first big show.
Man, you just gotta roll through it. It's kind of like it has to just go off your back. Not everything is gonna be like A plus. Like you're not every show is gonna be your favorite show. And that's okay. I think use those opportunities to look at how you can grow and how you can do better. I also think learning to edit is a huge part of this. I think if you're a good photographer, you're a good editor. And a lot of times people like, I've definitely seen in people that I follow, like there's a huge growth. And you know that it's because that person either learned how to use Photoshop better or they learned how to do something new in Lightroom. And so spending time actually like getting really comfortable with those softwares is going to help you so much. And it will help you do so much more if you are not like super techie. Lightroom has a new like AI denoise filter. So if you're like, I have an older camera and when I take concert photos, my ISO is super high. You can always use that as like kind of a crutch to help fix a couple things. You'll be okay.
Yeah,
It'll be okay.
100%. I was going to say for any of the film people, because I only shoot film and I definitely limited with shows sometimes. When I figured out my editing style and Photoshop, like I gained so much more confidence going to shows, even when lighting wasn't messed up. Like you shouldn't rely on Photoshop to fix everything, but if you're at a show and you're like, holy shit, this lighting is trash, back of your head, if you have like some confidence in Lightroom or Photoshop, it's a little bit of a saving grace.
And the more you do it, you'll start to go to shows and like you'll see the edits in your head. And so when you get into it, you'll do it. Like I love to edit some crazy pictures because I'm like, I really need this image to have a tie-dye texture and I can't stop thinking about it. And so like the more you do it, it'll start to guide and like help you develop your style.
100%. Oh, I like this question. What are some essential things you pack for a concert? How many cameras and lenses do you take?
Okay, so I feel like I actually am not a good example because I don't like to carry that many things. So I literally show up with my camera, an extra battery, extra SD card, and my earplugs, and that's it. I like to go light. I know people who have like multiple lenses and like multiple camera bodies, but I think if you're someone who's going to like cover or shoot for a publication, you're not going for like paid work, like you don't need to bring a million things. But if also you do have those things, bring them. Why not? But it's also like sometimes you can't store them while you're in the pit, and you do not, please do not wear a backpack in the photo pit. Like that's not, no, we're sharing space. So you don't need too much, but I think there's this tendency when you first start, you're like, I need my entire camera backpack. I'm going to bring every lens I own and like 7 batteries and like 4 SD cards because you're like anxious. Trust me, I get it. That's where I started. But now I literally show up with like my camera and my bagoo, not even a camera bag. Like I'm really just kind of raw dogging it, but whatever you feel comfortable with.
I love that. Hillary says, I've heard that red lighting is tough to work with. Do you feel this way? Or any additional tips on working with concert lighting colors?
I think it really depends on your editing style. I love red lighting. I think it's fun. I think one thing to be really conscious of while you're editing is skin tone. To me personally, as a photographer, that is something I really prioritize and look at. I believe that like if you're shooting someone, you should try at least to get their skin tone right. No one wants to be green or orange. And I think that is super important because ultimately you want your pictures to be respectful and like reflect the person in like a positive light. So working with difficult lighting like red lighting is something that like it is going to be harder to edit through, but I think it's really important to learn and to figure out how to do it in a way that you make your people look good and you make them look how they would look in like everyday lighting. But it is hard and you will figure it out. And also like there's no shame in getting a preset. Like I think it's so fine because like sometimes you need a little assist, and it's like learning to work with the preset. Also, if you have never used in Photoshop, if you, or not Photoshop, in Lightroom on the right panel, if I hope that you guys know what I'm talking about, if you scroll all the way down, you can actually, I think this is like my favorite part of Lightroom that I don't think a lot of people use is like the calibration settings. Calibration helps so much with skin tone and can help you like correct things. And I think that's like a feature of Lightroom that is really often actually like overlooked. Yeah.
Awesome. That actually leads to the next question of just quick overview maybe of your editing process, or do you have any presets that you generally use for certain lighting settings?
Yeah. So I actually, great question. Sorry, that's like 3-pronged. I'm trying to figure out how to answer it best. So I think my editing process, as you probably heard and gathered from that, I'm very big on like data management. And so like downloading my photos and making sure that they're in duplicate places is like the first thing I get into. And then I bring everything into Lightroom Classic. Lightroom has 2 like versions. There's Lightroom that's based off of like a cloud platform, and then there's Classic, which is based off of like a hard drive or local data. So that is like step number 1. I'm a Lightroom girly. There's a lot of other like softwares that you can use. I think Photo Mechanic is another one that I've heard people use. But in terms of presets, I actually don't use concert photography specific presets. I think I have a preset pack that I found for free, which I don't know. I can't lie. I think I found it in like the description of a YouTube video. And I think it makes my pictures look crazy sometimes. But like the thing about presets is you don't just put it on and like you're like done. It's like, okay, this is step 1. What are the 7 things I'm going to change to make it look how I want to? So presets are really just like a jumping off point. But I mean, if you guys follow Maddie Vogel, he definitely has some that are really awesome and cool that I would like to buy someday. I just like simply haven't yet.
Fair.
But there's no shame in it.
Any tips on when you can shoot only in the crowd? I get so shy trying to get angles when there's no pit. I'd rather die than shoot from a crowd. So
okay, honestly, I think this is something you actually have to become really comfortable with. I love shooting from the crowd. Actually, one of my favorite shows ever that I've shot, Yeve's Tumor. I thought I was gonna die that night. I can't lie. I've never felt that like I can't breathe. But also the pictures are some of my favorite. And I think one thing to learn is how to move through a crowd and how to like kind of carry yourself in a way that people will like not mess with you. I think the fact that you're holding a camera kind of gives you some weird authority because 98% of people do not know how this works and do not know that we're just like kind of just hanging out and taking pics. So you kind of just have to learn how to move through crowds, and this will make it so much better when you go to shows with friends because you're like, we're not showing up to be in line. We're just gonna like worm our way in, but be respectful of the girlies who like go like 6 hours early for barricade. Don't be rude for that. But I think it's just a confidence thing. I also really just say, excuse me, and it gets you really far. Like I work at a nightclub sometimes doing photo and pushing through drunk people. Like, thank God I've had like 2 years of experience doing that because I don't think I could do that without having to learn how to do it in like a tame like indie concert setting. But also just say, excuse me, be polite. It's people want to be nice, and if you're like, hi, excuse me, can I stand in front of you for like a couple like minutes? I'm just trying to get my shots and I'll get out of the way. That's nice. I also talk to the people in the crowd, which I get can be really scary because social anxiety. But at the same time, if you say, hey girl, hey, or you're like, oh my God, do you like this artist? Like you build a rapport, and then you can kind of people want to be nicer.
Yeah, 100%. I think this will be our last question. I know we have one additional question asking to see some photos, but we'll save that for the end. So our final question, I think, will just be any tips on contacting media companies or working with them? Just stick to emails, ?
Yeah, I think it really depends who you are. I don't really like to reach out to people off of social media. I know a lot of people who like to send fuck it emails and fuck it DMs. And they're like, yeah, why not? Maybe like channel traces like on their Instagram. And sometimes that works. And sometimes you can be that girl and like get in that way. But I would say 9 times out of 10, don't. I prefer to email. I think professionalism is something that's super important to me in this space because, you know, who knows? Maybe this is like a space that I do want to like further develop my network and further develop my like kind of career into. Like, I wouldn't DM people. But also, if you're going to do it, at least be nice about it and at least be ready for whatever's coming. If it's a smaller artist, you can get away with it, but it's not like you're going to like DM Drake, you know? Like the little guys who play like the 100-person venues will probably get back to you, which is great. And that's a great place to start. And yeah.
Actually, I see we have one more question from Sophia, and then we'll go back to the photo on Rex for lens filters.
I like my this is the one that I've been using a lot. Sorry, all my gear is in like a fun little cart. I love a 4-point star filter. They come in all different like versions, but I bought mine through FX. I can't lie, or not FX. Yeah, Prism FX. This is what they look like if you've never seen one. I don't think you can like catch it, but there's a million ads for them on Instagram. Go find them. But I actually really like the Hoya brand. I just like how it catches light more, and I think one really important thing to like understand about how a filter works is it's all about like, I don't know if you remember being like a kid in like science class and they're teaching you about like light refraction. That's how a lot of this actually works. And so it's yes, the Hoya 4-point is the way to go. That's what I started with. And then I actually was at freaking such a chill, tame concert and did this. And just absolutely shattered it, and I wanted to cry because now this is like $80 versus when I bought it was $20. I guess interest in this space has gone up, but yeah, honestly, the Amazon ones, I don't like. Sorry if like you don't like Jeff Bezos, but like they're a great place to start, and they're more affordable. And when you're ready, you can always like step up into like one of the fancier brands. But yeah.
Yay, thank you for that. I think a fun way to wrap up, and not to put you on the spot, but if you wanted to share any additional photos, I have your portfolio up if you want me to share my screen with that.
Yeah, I guess that's easiest because we don't need to scroll through mine.
And it might be helpful for people to see how you have this laid out as well.
Yeah, so this is built on Adobe Portfolio. Super easy on the back end. It works like an album. These are just some of the shows that I've covered, I also just like lay it out because I like how visually it looks, like it's pretty color wise. Also, this is a bit of my photography. Some of it is super heavily edited and some of it's a little bit more like naturalistic. But as you can see, I really love the star filter in all of these. It's kind of present. Like sometimes I don't have it and I feel like, who am I? So like developing your style is like super important, and like have confidence in your experimentation. Like it's cool. It's fun. Sometimes it feels like I just want my images to be like everyone else's. But I think being confident in like developing your style is really hard. But I think ultimately, if you stay true to it, you'll end up feeling so much better about like your unique style, like as you progress. Yeah, there's a lot. I think
I don't want to put you on the spot, but yeah, these
okay.
are so amazing.
Yeah.
It's
So
cool
if
to see
anyone
your
wants to like
style
stalk
too
me,
develop.
go for it, I guess. But yeah.
Yay. Well, thank you so much. You freaking killed this. You covered literally everything anyone could ever need to know. And thank everyone for watching, attending, asking amazing questions. For those that came in late, I'm just going to put in my email again. And Miranda, if it's cool, I'm going to drop your email in too. You can contact us for literally anything. As I mentioned earlier, Luna is always taking new photo or photographers, why can't I speak, for concerts. So please feel free to send over a portfolio. Miranda is always accessible as well. And yeah, thank you everyone. And seriously, thank you so much, Miranda. This was awesome. This will be up on our YouTube probably tomorrow because it'll break my computer exporting. So thank you all again. And yeah, thank you again, Miranda. I appreciate you so much.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Thanks for listening to me talk.
You killed it, honestly. Awesome. Well, everyone enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and yeah, have a good one, everyone.
Thank you.
See y'all. See you, Miranda.